Fresh out the oven, it's Cinema Bums. I'm Wade.
And I'm Emmett.
Cinema Bums is a podcast where we watch through every single movie in popular film franchises, one each week, to try and track how the storytelling changes over time. Today we are concluding our mini-series, Unforgettable, covering all the films written by Greta Gerwig. We will fully spoil today's film, but we will not spoil any future entries in the series because there are currently none. Emmett, how are you doing?
I feel great to be talking about one of the greatest movies of all time. Woo! Love it. I'm so happy to be here. How are you?
I'm doing great. How do you feel about finishing our second series?
Astounded, honestly. We spent so much time on those X-Men, and now we've just breezed through these Greta Gerwig movies, and it felt like I like movies again. What is this? It's not like a chore. It's fantastic. I'm very excited for our upcoming series. A little teaser for that. I know we're not announcing yet, but very excited for what's coming down the pipeline.
Listen, I adore this movie. I'm very excited to talk about it. And I adore our special guest, who we are honored to have.
Woo-woo.
He is an actor, comedian, a musician, perhaps best known to our audience for his hit Broadway musical, Kermit, Did You Know? The Miss Piggy Story. Please welcome Adam Hobbs.
Hello. Thank you. Oh my god. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. This is also one of my favorite movies, so I'm thrilled to talk about it.
Hell yeah. So you'd seen this movie before?
I have, yes. I saw it around when it first came out. I saw it in theaters, and then I've seen it 3 or 4 times since then.
Have you seen any of the other Gerwig movies?
I've seen Lady Bird, but that's all.
How do you feel about Lady Bird and young Saoirse Ronan?
I really love Lady Bird. I saw... Oh my gosh, what's her name?
Saoirse
The mom.
Laurie Metcalf.
Laurie Metcalf. I saw her in the play Hillary and Clinton on Broadway, and I just really love her. So her as the mom was great. So, and Saoirse Ronan is delightful.
Which one was she playing?
Hillary.
I saw that in Chicago when it premiered, but there was no one notable in it. I thought it was okay.
Yeah, it was an interesting play. The vibe was interesting. I saw it was her, and then John Lithgow played Bill.
That's cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
I saw it before he had written Doll's House Part 2 and was set for life. So it was kind of when I saw it, people were like, oh, who's this guy? Okay, interesting. Cool.
Yeah. I think the big name actors kind of made me enjoy it. It was just oh, this is so cool seeing these people act,
Okay, today we are talking about Little Women, as we mentioned. So just setting the scene a little bit here. This movie is based on the novel written by Louisa May Alcott. It was first published in 1869.
Wow. Nice.
The original book is separated into 2 parts, which were published as separate books originally, a year apart. It's about these 4 young sisters growing up in New England in the American Civil War. And so the first part is them as kids, as they're sort of dealing with their father being away at the war and fun childhood things and fights. And then the second half is them as adults, as they're getting married and trying to live out their adult life and everything. The novel is semi-autobiographical because it is based on Louisa May Alcott's childhood and also the childhood of her mother, Abigail, which was interesting.
Yeah.
This film is directed and written by Greta Gerwig, so 6th film she's written, 2nd she's directed. This is the 7th adaptation of Little Women. The first one was a silent film in 1917, which is just crazy to think about. And this one is most notable for what she does with it is that this is the first adaptation of Little Women ever that has gone out of chronological order. So she has kind of interspersed bits from part 2 with bits from part 1, and you watch like both of the books play out simultaneously.
Are you telling me that Greta Gerwig is the only person who fits the Venn diagram of people who have both read Little Women and watched Quentin Tarantino movies?
That may be true, in fact. Yeah, because I haven't seen Quentin Tarantino movies.
And I haven't read Little Women.
We had to read it in middle school. Yeah, have you read the book, Adam?
Yeah, I actually read it last year around when the movie came out because I was like being like, oh, I'm going to read the book. So I read the book.
How did you feel about what she does in the movie with interspersing the two halves of it?
Oh, I really like it. I think it, but especially with the Professor Bear, like relationship, it gives it time to like develop. Because in the book, it's kind of like, oh, here's this new guy that we're supposed to care about at the very end, and then she marries him.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It is weird in the book.
So that, I think that was smart for Greta Gerwig to like play it that way.
That's a good point, because you introduce him like right at the very beginning. You're like, ooh, who's this hot guy that she's like into? She like obviously has chemistry with him in the first couple of scenes that she's in. And then we let that simmer as we go through her entire history with Laurie, so you can watch her fall in love all over again for the first time. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's the thing that's wild, is the first relationship you see Joe in is with Bear.
Yeah.
And the first time you see Laurie, you learn, that the first time you ever meet this character, you learn that Joe has rejected him, and that there's like maybe something between him and Amy, who's the sister played by Florence Pugh.
And it still surprises you. It still like rips you up when it happens, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
It does for me anyway.
Maybe the thing the book is most famous for is that there is sort of this like romance, friendship, devotion between the lead character Joe, who is kind of has a lot of elements of the author, Louisa May Alcott, and her neighbor, Laurie, who is played in the movie by Timothée Chalamet. Joe is played by Saoirse Ronan. Famously, in part 2 of the book, they don't end up together. Partially a statement by Louisa May Alcott about like women not needing to marry to be happy, and a relation to the fact that like everyone who read part 1 like kept writing her, asking her when they were going to get married, and like falling in love with these characters being together.
I love that.
Dude, she's savage. She's just like, no, straight up, the fans want this? Absolutely not. Not a chance, Sonny. I'm going to make it as tragic as possible.
She's like, I'll just throw in this random old dude for her to marry at the very end.
I mean, that's the thing. We can just get into this right now.
Okay, let's do it.
You don't have to do all the preamble. No. But like, so in the book, this movie makes changes to Professor Bear. You know this too, Adam, because you've also read it. But in the book, first of all, he's older than I think he is in this movie. He's 40 in the book, and she's 20.
Yeah.
And how old do you think he is in this movie? He's a little older.
Maybe 30.
Yeah, probably like at most early 30s.
Yeah, I felt like early 30s too. And he's not hot. They make a point of saying that in the book, that he's not handsome, and that they're like a weird match together. I guess the question is like, how serious are we supposed to take Bear in the book? Like, is she really saying like, when you grow up, you want a different thing, and like you make a different type of love work, and that's what life is like? Or is it just sort of like a middle finger to the publishers who did make her? They were like, and this is the meta element of the movie that we'll talk about, but the publishers were like, hey, she has to get married. Joe has to get married. And then Louisa was like, okay, well, she's not marrying Laurie, so I'll just throw in like this gross old guy and it won't make sense. How do you like that?
Now, I'm going to just raise a small objection here. As the child of parents who are 23 years apart in age, like sometimes that happens and they're still like happily together and have 3 of us. It's like, I haven't read the book. I don't know what it might be like there, if that's like realistic or not in terms of that book. But I definitely take the point that they have cleaned it up a little bit by making him young and hot and like have chemistry with her. You know, like that really does like make that choice a lot easier for her at the end too.
Well, I think that her biggest like thing to the publisher was that she didn't have her end up with Laurie. So I think she still wanted Joe to like be happy properly. So I imagine that she still wrote like intending for her to be happy with this man. I also like to think that like Bear to me is someone that stimulated her intellectually, and that was what she connected with more, because like Laurie and her were just like friends and like grew up together and they had that close bond, more like siblings. But like with Bear, it was like he understood her intellectually and like thought of her, saw her for her like intellectual worth, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. To your point, Emmett, it does show them being happy at the end of the book. It just does say like they're a weird match.
Yeah.
The score for this movie by Alexander Desplat, the French composer. And I think that this is like his magnum opus. I think he does such good work here.
It is beautiful.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
And it's mostly all piano, I want to say. I think it's pretty much all like instruments that were there at the time.
I think it was honey and gossamer and gold were the instruments that he played on, and the very heartstrings of an angel.
Oh my gosh.
The movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes, notably 40 minutes longer than any other Greta Gerwig film.
It's almost as long as an X-Men movie.
I was so like captured by it and like into the story, and I just love all the actors so much. I don't think I was ever thinking about like, oh, when is this going to end, or like, oh, it's going too long. Like, I don't know. I was just like into it, and that's been true every time I've watched it, because I've watched it a few times and I don't get like bored with it.
I love every minute of this movie. I don't think it's too long, but I do think it suffers from a Return of the King problem, in that it has like a lot of endings at the end. And you kind of start to, you're like, okay, this is wrapping up now. And then it isn't. And you're like, I'm okay with it not wrapping up right now. But I thought it was going to.
I think it's definitely the slowest paced of any of hers. But I think it is still pretty quick paced. Like there are still so many scenes in this movie.
It is so quick paced for like a historical looking movie. You know, like for a movie set in that time, it's very quick paced. It has the feeling of a 2019 movie. Just like, I think that's kind of like what's really cool about this, is that she's like, oh, what if I made a good movie but just took this content as the basis for it, as opposed to being like, let me do my 5-hour PBS miniseries on this thing.
Little Women also, like, I love Little Women, but it can easily be very boring. Like, it can be done in a very boring way. So I think like the fact that she did it and it wasn't boring is a tribute to like her talent.
Yeah, and one of the other big things that people talked about a lot is that it's very like contemporary rhythms of dialogue. Like all of the dialogue is period, and a lot of it is taken from the book, but sort of like the way they've overlapped a lot of it, and like the speed at which it goes is very modern.
But who's to say if it's modern or not? Like, isn't that just how people probably really talk, and we only think they talked that way because of literature? And, like, because of this weird conception of, like, the record that we have of that.
Yeah.
And, like, audio recording wasn't very good in the early days. So if you were recording things, you needed to be very clear on, like, who was speaking when.
This movie was released December 25th, 2019. A Christmas Day movie released by Sony Pictures. She really made it. The big leagues. When this movie started and there were all of like the actual studio logos, I felt such a swell of pride for her.
Yeah, seriously, it's like, finally make that bank. Like, yes, she deserves every penny of whatever she made for it.
Speaking of, this film had a budget of $40 million. It needed to make about $80 million to break even, which is what Lady Bird made, $80 million.
Wow.
It ended up making $220 million. So, legit. It was, according to Deadline, the 24th most profitable film of 2019.
Wow.
It was critically acclaimed, 91 on Metacritic, compared to Lady Bird's 94.
Yeah. Okay.
It was nominated for 6 Oscars: Best Picture, Best Actress for Ronan, Best Supporting Actress for Pugh.
Oh my God! Please give it to her. She needs it.
Which seems like a joint Oscar with Midsommar. Like, I feel like
for
her having
sure.
both of those in 6 months is part of why
Yeah.
that happens too.
For sure.
Best score, and the only one that it won, best costume design.
Damn. Yeah, that's pretty incredible too. And isn't this the one that you read that quote about a while back where you said that she wanted to make all the costumes sustainable?
Yeah, most of them are actually sourced from like around the 1800s.
Oh, that's so
which
cool.
is crazy. Like, they're pretty much all vintage pieces. And then after they finished it, they like all got recycled to be in other movies.
That's
Or
very
like
cool.
to have the fabrics used for other things. And the outfits in this, especially Florence Pugh's entire wardrobe.
Oh my god.
Unbelievable.
Stunning.
The black dress with like the gold patterns on it.
But let me talk about Florence Pugh for a second. One of my favorite actresses now. After this movie and Midsummer, and honestly, I think it's just her face is so expressive. There's something going on. She's very funny. She's very crazy. I think it's a joy to have her in this film. She does that thing where like this character would be so hateable if it wasn't her playing it. It's like this, you're like, you do not want Laurie to go off and marry this sister who has like done all of these pretty horrible things to Joe. And yet it's her. And when she looks at him, you know, and you're just like, oh my God.
Trying to humanize that character is a lot of what this movie does. And like also a lot of what the structure does. When you read the book, it's like she's the annoying sister, and then she burns the book, which is like unforgivable.
Yeah.
And then in part 2, like she's a real character, but she just marries Laurie instead, and you just get pissed at it.
Yeah.
But like in the movie, you meet her and Laurie first, and you also meet her as an adult first, so you know that she doesn't end up sort of like how she is as a kid. I love everything in this movie, but I think that like all of the Paris scenes with her and Chalamet are my favorite.
They're so good. Yeah, I agree. She's wonderful. And I think that the setup that like Greta Gerwig did with like starting there was really smart with that storyline too. And like letting us, even though like Joe is a protagonist, it kind of gave Amy like her protagonist moments of like seeing what she wants and like how she's getting it and seeing her journey and her growing. Like you even see like her as a kid, you're seeing how much she loved Laurie like from early on. And
when she's making the cast of her foot to give to him, to show her nice feet.
Incredible. Love her confidence, you know? You go for it, girl.
I would never.
Yeah.
Wade has beautiful feet. Wade
Thank
could
you.
give a cast of his feet to somebody as a present. They would love it.
I was a little confused about how it works. Because what is it like?
I was
She
too.
puts her foot in it, so like, is it a cast around her foot where there's just like a foot-shaped hole?
No, so what she would do is she would put her foot in that, cut that in half, and then fill it with some sort of clay or something in the negative space where her foot was
Got you.
to form it into that shape. That's
Wow.
how this sort of casting stuff would work.
Nowadays, you just take a pic. So much harder back then.
Yeah, it was
So much harder to flirt with
Yeah.
feet.
some foot pics. She really was watching Tarantino.
Oh my gosh.
Amy is the original Wiki Feet member.
Oh my gosh.
For all the Oscar love that this movie got, no love for Greta Gerwig. Not nominated for Best Director.
Unbelievable.
Her script was nominated, but not Best Director. Widely considered a snub. And Natalie Portman wore a dress to the Oscars that had Greta Gerwig's name on it.
That's cool.
In,
Oh, yeah.
like, awareness of it. It had a bunch of other female directors, too, but it's very cool. It's like a cape, and it just has, like, Gerwig stitched into the lining all over it.
I love
Wow.
Yeah, any thoughts? Any thoughts on Oscar Watch, Emmett? Returning our old segment, Oscar Watch?
Yeah, I mean, you know what the Oscars can go do. I can't say it on the air, but I will tell you that Dick Cheney said it to a reporter one time.
Dick Cheney, beloved friend of the Oscars.
Friend of the Oscars.
He
Dick
was
Cheney.
nominated.
Oh,
this
he
year
was, wasn't he?
when Greta Gerwig wasn't.
For
Vice.
for Vice?
Yeah, I'll say right there next to the Oscars, there's a special place for Stars, the streaming service that we watched this on.
Oh my gosh.
Because every 15 minutes in the movie, they put up this bright flashing Stars logo in the corner.
Oh my god.
And it was there for like 5 minutes. It was so annoying.
It was very annoying. I honestly think it would have been less annoying if it had been there the whole time.
I think so too.
And the fact that it would like go off and on was very distracting.
But like, what
annoying.
possible service does it fill? Because we have to have Stars already to watch it. So it's not like trying to sell me on getting it. I've already done the most that I have given everything I can to Stars, and they've still done this to me.
They just want to remind you.
I wouldn't say that. We did use the 7-day free trial.
We did, and then immediately deleted it. But if they hadn't have put up that little logo, I might have kept it.
Who knows?
That's what I have to say. That's what I have to say to Stars.
Oh my gosh.
I have 2 pull quotes for the reviews of this movie.
All right.
The first one is Anthony Lane from that vestibule of journalism, The New Yorker. He writes, "The movie's outward gaze is radical, yet it refuses to scorn the comforts that are honored by the conservative imagination. Such poise is almost as rare in cinema as it is in politics. And right now, though we can't foretell whether time will be cruel or kind to Gerwig's Little Women, it may just be the best film yet made by an American woman."
Damn. I feel like there's a lot to unpack there.
I thought so too.
I'm trying to like...
What does he mean by its outward gaze is radical?
I don't really know. I mean, it definitely is like the structure of it.
Okay.
I think. Well, like, no, it is like a pretty socially liberal movie. Like all of the stuff about the woman's place that Amy gets, and like all of the meta stuff that Joe gets about like feminism and art and everything. But it is also sort of like close to that like Little House on the Prairie family values sort of ideal too.
That's true.
Yeah.
Which is what I think he's pointing out. The big compliment that is also like very weirdly qualified in the best movie made by a woman, by an American woman.
Something about that doesn't sit right
Yeah,
with
it's
me.
just like it feels like an insult. The way that he's saying it, it feels like some sort of weird slight.
Even if it's true, it doesn't feel right, Like...
Oh, like it just is one of the best movies.
The way that,
like,
the way that he said it, he didn't have to say American women. Like, it was just not
like,
necessary.
You could have said one of the best adaptations of American literature.
Yeah.
How about that?
A pull quote I like a little bit better is by Madison Ripley on Letterboxd, who writes, "Little Women is like if the song Ribs by Lorde was 2 hours long." Which I think is right. Like, this movie is like so nostalgic and so like longing.
Yeah.
In the same way that Lorde's music is. And that I think of like music being more than film most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Adam, Little Women, flop or bop?
It's a bop. It's a bop. Great, great movie. I have a bad habit of like loving a movie before I've even seen it just because of the actors in it. And I have to be like, okay, you have not seen it yet. So this was one of those that I was like already going into like, this will be my favorite movie of all time. And then I watched it and I was like, okay, this may be my favorite movie of all time because I just really loved it. Yeah, like I love the cast, and I think that Greta Gerwig really captured the truth of like the book but brought it to like today. Like she captured that like simplicity and that like hominess that's like in the story of like this family like doing kind of like just their day-to-day life, but also like it felt bigger than that at the same time, if that makes sense.
And whoever said conservatives have a monopoly on family? What the hell is that about?
Emmett?
Yes?
Flop or bop?
It's a bop. It's a bop.
Yeah, it's a bop.
Yeah,
it's a bop. It's
like
a certified bop.
It's like certified, like not even a question. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we've been just hyping this movie for 25 minutes already, and you're gonna go and ask me a question like that.
I feel like it's sometimes harder with these really good movies, like with Lady Bird, where I'm like, What is there to say other than it's great?
It's great. Go watch it. I mean, fantastic. Okay. Can we just run down the cast list?
Sure.
Talk
do
about
a cast report.
All
Let's
the
do it.
fantastic people in this movie.
Yeah.
Sure. Saoirse Ronan as Jo.
Yeah, I think she was like spot on casting, and like she's just such a star and like so talented. So, like putting her as Jo was just like yes.
I read that when Gerwig announced that she was directing it, which was after Lady Bird had come out, Saoirse texted her and said, "I'm going to play Jo." And Greta was like, "Okay, well, give me a few weeks to think about it." Because she didn't want, like, you know, like her to just pick it herself. And then she was like, yeah, she should be Jo. Like, that is the thing that Jo would do.
Yeah.
And then she said, interestingly, that, like, if it was Saoirse, it had to be Chalamet.
And then you have them, and then you have the whole thing. Her range is stunning. And she goes through, like, all of it in this movie. She's doing funny stuff. She's doing big, broad comic stuff. She's doing tragedy. Sometimes she's doing them at the same time. You know, can I say about this that I always was like, in the first time that I watched this, I was sympathized much more with Laurie in that scene, in the final scene between the two of them. And then this time around, I was like, oh no, she's like completely 100% doing the right thing. It just sucks.
Yeah,
I agree. The first time I don't want to say like on Laurie's side, but I did like feel for him more. And then the second time I was just a little more like, it is the right thing. But like, it still is so sad.
It's still such a sad scene.
It was, well, let me say, both times we watched this together in theaters and then watched it the other night. I've only seen it twice. But like, both times, the last 90 minutes were just waterworks.
Yeah.
All the way through.
Yeah, it's like it gets 30 minutes in, you start crying, and you might stop intermittently and to laugh at some moments, but you're probably just going to be leaking the rest of the movie. It's so
I mean,
sad.
I'm the type of person that like, if a movie wants me to cry, I'm crying because I cry at anything. Like, I feel that sadness is there, and I'm like, okay, I'm crying. And so this movie got me good.
I mean, kind of interesting because some adaptations do use different casts for the two parts, and you can definitely like. You can kind of tell when they're doing the old stuff that they're the same age and they're like playing young a little bit.
Yeah, I think it also works because like the whole thing feels like Jo's storytelling. So like it doesn't have to be perfectly like the realism of that. It can just be like these are her sisters and she's thinking of them and like remembering the stories but like of them now in a way. Like
yeah.
When Florence Pugh's in the school, I'm like, these are like children, and she's like a grown woman in the middle of the class. Yeah. But like, I don't even care because she plays it so well, and like, it's just fun.
That's true.
But I definitely like for a moment was like, so those are like 12-year-olds. Florence Pugh's like, a grown woman.
Yeah.
The structure thing too sort of makes it a movie about Jo looking back on her life. Like it is sort of a movie about Jo in the present, like searching for something that's like what all of these memories were to her.
Yeah.
Which also makes it sort of like a memory play in some ways. Which obviously like all of the book is, since it's semi-autobiographical, but in the book everything is like happening in the present. And then I feel like in the movie, that stuff sort of has, like, the hint of, like, that it's embellished and that it's a memory that you're looking at, like, with fondness rather than something that's playing out in the moment. We've got Emma Watson as Meg, who I want to mention was originally played by Emma Stone, who dropped out to do The Favorite instead.
I feel like she would have been a weird Meg.
Yeah.
I could, like, see her being Jo, although I'm not saying I want that because I want Saoirse Ronan, but like Emma Stone gives me more Jo vibes than Meg vibes.
I feel like she could have done Amy. I feel like that's the one I see her.
That's the one that I was going to say.
I can see that too.
But she's also too old to have done the like young Amy stuff the way that Florence Pugh kind of can pull it off.
But I think she has more of that like playfulness of Jo or Amy than like Meg is a little bit more of the like serene, sweet. I mean, I'm not saying she would have been bad because I love Emma Stone, but like it's not necessarily like what my first thought. I think Emma Watson is like a Meg type.
Wade, you said something interesting when we were watching about how she's like the older sister of a generation of movie watchers. And Greta was kind of playing into that by casting her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like smartly so. Yeah. And one of maybe like the only person who has like properly used Emma Watson post Harry Potter. I mean, you've got her in Beauty and the Beast, which is like the other big one she does.
I haven't seen it. Is it good?
I mean, I'm the type of person that loves everything, so I like enjoyed it. But I think she's not a singer, so she shouldn't have been cast in a musical. But
okay,
like she does, she's lovely. Like she's a lovely Belle. She's beautiful. It does fine. It's not bad. I just like I still like love her.
I didn't like the movie, but she is good casting. Like
yeah, she fits. Belle.
It makes sense. But I think she's really good in this in a way that she like kind of hasn't been given the chance to in most things. I also feel like this is the oldest she's played, and I think that, at least for me, feel free to disagree with me, the movie like manages to make the Meg stuff interesting, which is like, we have to pay bills.
I struggle with Meg because she's definitely the one that I think I care about the least, but like, It's not that I don't care about her, I just kind of like, when the story's happening, if it's not focused on her, then I kind of like forget what's even like going on with her. But I will agree that like Emma Watson, I think, made it. And I think the fact that we all love her and like grew up with her helps that. And like it helps us just like listen to this character because we love this person. Like
I do think her stuff is mildly interesting. I still think it's the least interesting thing in the movie. I resonate with being poor and having to pay bills, so
yeah.
Yeah, I love stuff, so like I feel her. Like I want things, but I can't pay for them.
Yeah,
she has that
very relatable.
Strange little gift of the Magi moment with her man, and that's okay. You read the Gift of the Magi, but maybe she wrote this before that, so I don't know. Maybe she's really the OG.
I do enjoy like the side of it that it takes where with like Meg, because Joe's like, marriage, no thank you, not for me. But like Meg, that is like what she wants more than anything. And so like this idea that like feminism isn't about necessarily like one thing or the other. It's about like letting women choose for themselves like what life they want and what's right for them.
Yeah, I think Meg has that really good line about it in the movie too. She's
like, just because my dreams are different doesn't mean they're, or like different than yours doesn't mean they're not like important.
You know, that kind of bounces back to that girl from Lady Bird, who's her friend, who they're talking about how she wants to just stay in Sacramento and raise kids.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of there's kind of a similarity there. There's a lot of similarities between a lot of the characters in this movie and all of the previous Greta movies.
So.
I think it's like such a wild magic trick that Greta makes Lady Bird and Little Women like both period pieces, like both very much about the time and the place and being about like the costumes and the music and the way they talk and being enveloped in the time and place. And yet they are both like the most universal coming of age movies. Like everyone watches them who wasn't in California in the 90s or New England in the 1860s. And is like, yeah, that's what it was like when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Florence Pugh as Amy.
I love her. Like, I mean, this is like a simple. I just love her like speaking voice. Like, I could listen to her just talk. Like, she just like captivates me when she speaks.
Mm-hmm.
And especially like, I love her speech to Laurie about like the economic proposition like speech where she's like, yeah, I'm making like a choice, an economic proposition with my marriage because I have to. Because look at the world we live in. Like. I really liked that like take on it because like Joe obviously doesn't think in those terms, but Amy does. And I think that there's a lot. I think that this movie did a good job of. Sorry if I'm like going off on a tangent. This movie did a good job of like, even though Joe and Amy are kind of like against each other, there's a lot that they have in common with like their ambition and their like drive to like make something in the world. Like you kind of, I think that they're very similar in like ambition. They just have different things that they're shooting for, you know. Which I feel like this movie, for me, when I watch it, like I saw that more. And maybe it's just because of the way like Florence played it too. Like she brought out more of that drive of Amy, not just the like, I want to like be married because it's, you know, I want to have pretty things. It felt like more like to make her way in the world.
I don't know if in the book her painting is like really, her artistry is really focused on. But because we get introduced to her in the older part of the narrative, she's already like a pretty damn good painter when you see her.
Yeah.
And she's like, she's disappointed in her work, but anybody just looking at it, I would be proud if I painted half as good as any of those things. So like,
Yeah.
you know, like she is getting there, and she has this moment where she's like, if I can't be great, I don't want to be anything at all. And you're like, oh, well, there's the kid again, but she's really good. And it kind of makes it so that it's not like, oh, there's Amy who likes to paint and Joe's the real artist, but they're both artists.
Yeah.
And they're both like on that same trajectory. And just because Amy also values like high society and being an artist in high society and like wearing nice dresses doesn't make her any less of an artist than Joe, who's like rough and tumble and doesn't care how she looks and has ink stains all over, you know? It's just two different kinds of the same.
For how good she is, if she was a man, like people would have been praising her paintings, but she's a woman, so she felt like she had to go like even further because like no one's even like looking at her because she's a woman.
Yeah, I feel like the other movies are kind of like, Amy, she's vain.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing about her. And in this movie, like she's maybe the most talented of any of them. And also, like, the least concerned with her art of sort of all of them, it feels like.
Well, they're all great artists, aren't they? Meg's an actress, Joe's a writer, and Beth is a pianist.
Yeah.
A musician.
Who's also very good.
Very, very talented. Yeah. That's
and she has that interesting speech about, like, my music is just for us. Like, nobody else has to hear it.
That's a really cool thing, too, because there are people who are like that, where it's like they have that huge talent and they just don't care about getting anything from anyone else for it.
Yeah.
They're just content with it.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder what that's like. Wow.
Gerwig's pitch for this movie was about, it says, commerce and art and what you have to do to make things commercial.
Wow.
Was like what her pitch for Little Women was.
Interesting.
God, Greta, our anti-cap queen.
Which is also interesting, like, in this movie where she goes commercial.
Yeah, truly.
You know?
Truly.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like so much of all of her movies are separately about, like, what it's like to make art. And separately about what it is like to hear feedback about your art.
Yeah.
Like, that is, like, clearly a huge sticking point in all of these movies.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, the whole thing with Bear in this, where she, like, can't take it, but then, like, comes around to it at the end.
Yeah.
It's also an interesting corollary with the first boyfriend character in Old Mistress America, the young writer boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Who gives her feedback that she doesn't like and maybe isn't good, but in this movie a similar character gives better advice.
When he first started giving advice, I was like, shut up. And then I was like, oh wait, he's okay. Because at first he's like, it's bad. And I'm like, that's not criticism.
Yeah,
but he did get further into it. So I was like, okay, I'll give him a second. But first I was like, shut your mouth. I was like so mad at him. And then I was like, take a breath, Adam. Like, it's okay. I also I'm sure we all get, like, where Saoirse Ronan's character is coming from, like, where Joe's coming from. Like, that, especially, like, early on, your art is very personal. It's easy to get very defensive because it's personal. It feels personal. You put personal things into it, so.
Yeah. But also, at that point, it's published. Like, he is reading her published stories that thousands of other people are reading. True. And it's like, he's the first person to ever give her any feedback about what it's like.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, that is what the movie says, because he's like, is this the first time anyone has talked to you about, like, what art is and how you get better as an artist? And it clearly is, because she quits.
Yeah.
And, like, has a breakdown because of it.
But I thought it was because she was writing, like, schlocky fiction, and he didn't like the content.
He even says, like, he can see that she's talented. He's not even saying, like, her talent's not there. It's just, like, she can do better, and like there's more she can write about things that are better and more personal to her, I think, is really what he was like getting at, because she was writing what people wanted to hear, not like what she wanted to write.
We've got Eliza Scanlon as Beth. Easy to be the least noticed sister, because you could argue she has less of a personality than the others, and she dies halfway through, so it would be easy for her to be sort of the one you forget about. But I think she does pretty good in this.
I think she captures Beth really well. I also like the actress. I saw her in the show Sharp Objects with Amy Adams, and she's like a very different character in that. So like, it was cool kind of seeing her like range as an actress, seeing that she can kind of like, because her character's not really like sweet at all in Sharp Objects, and she's kind of like the sweet one in this one. And I think she captured that like kind of like fragile quality of Beth, and like
they're doing like this Inception thing where they're on that beach for 45 minutes at the end of the movie, and you just keep intercutting it, the beach scene, with other stuff, and you're like, she's gonna die, oh my god, why are you showing me all of these things? She's gonna die. and then she does, and it's but she's so good, and her relationship with Chris Cooper as the old man who lives next door, so beautiful. And I think also it's just like a wonderful thing that speaks to her character of like when their mom is out of town and has told them to like keep up with the good works that they do in the community. And she's the one who goes by herself to like deliver bread to like the poor family and to like do all of the things, like keep up with all of the good work that their mom does all the time, which I think is just like so sweet. So like she's fragile, but she's also got that like strength of like she has like the moral strength from their mom of like doing the right thing always, no matter what, even if her sisters are too lazy or too self-involved or whatever else to do it.
Absolutely.
I love her.
And I think the movie does a good job of letting you see her in little moments where you realize that she feels like more of a character and not just like the perfect sister who dies and gets to stay a child forever, never did anything wrong in her life and dies. Like, I think particularly the moment where you see her in the play at the beginning, the little play they all do, and how she's like hyping herself up and does the performance.
Yes.
Laura Dern is Marmee, the mom.
Yes. Okay, I love Laura Dern. And I really, really love her as Marmee. Like, it's definitely one of my favorite performances in this movie. And I know she won for Marriage Story this year, but I was like, you could have just as easily given her an Oscar nom for this movie. Like, and it's like, I mean, like, it's not the same as like every other role she's played, which I liked. Like, and she took on the mom character and played a mom very well, but also made her very real and like grounded and like a person that's not just a mom. Like, she's a person on her own, separate from being a mom, you know? And I just love the way Marmee like talks with her kids and like the very open, honest conversation she has with her kids and stuff. It's really special. Yeah,
the one convo, the like, I am angry every day of my life. Like, that bit is so good.
It's so good.
I don't know. I felt like her plagiarizing Mark Ruffalo in that moment was a little uncouth.
I guess now, as we continue on the list, it's time for our regular segment, Everyday Chalamet, where we talk about Timothée Chalamet's performance. How do we feel about him in this movie? Emmett, you feel like you have something to say?
Breaks my heart every time. Every day, and it would never be too much. How could you have any more hurt puppy energy and also look like a sly fox and also be out there having a like romantic relationship with 3 out of the 4 sisters and possibly their mother?
Yes, the mom. I was going to talk about that.
He is laying it down.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's just like when he sees Amy for the first time in the park and he's there with the scarf and she like sees him and you're like, oh, you know. And the scene on the hillside where she's just tearing his heart out in front of his eyes and he's like just pleading for everything. And the moment when he's walking away and she turns back around and he turns back around and the look on his face like, oh wait, she's not really gonna do it, and then she does. Incredible. Yeah,
I think he does a great job. I think he captures that youthfulness really well, and like the fact that I like feel so much pain and like sorry, like so much sadness for him when Joe like rejects him, and then and like also the scene where he's like talking to Amy at that party. I want to like actually murder him. I want her to murder him. When he like grabbed her arm, I was like, kill him. I was like, end him right now. But then I'm like, oh, but they're so sweet. So it's like he does that. He brings the like because there's times where Laurie is like a jerk in this movie, but also like you sympathize with him and you understand that like he's young and he's learning and he's growing and like hopefully grows up to be better. Like,
yeah, I feel like the movie does a really good job of like presenting all the angles with him without passing judgment on him.
Yeah.
I feel like here's the deal with this. The first moment he walks into that house, he falls in love with the family, and he falls in love with the idea of a warm space. Like, we know he doesn't have a dad, he doesn't have a mom. He just lives there with his sad old granddad, who's like a very sweet man, but probably not great company, you know, like to have all the time.
And harsher on him than he is on anyone else.
Yeah, exactly. And he comes into this warm space, an all-female space when he first enters it too, and is like, no, this is like warm and caring and loving, and like this is everything that I need. And I think it's more for him, it's less about Joe and more about like the whole environment. And like that makes me really sympathize with him, and that makes me really sympathize with his change and decision to marry Amy.
Yeah.
Because he wants to be part of that family. And I think it's really sweet for Joe and him too, that they get to be family still. And they do get to like continue to be together, but just not that way, because that's not the way they're meant to be together.
A lot of adaptations of Little Women, I feel like, center Joe so much that it's just like everyone else and how they relate with Joe. But this movie like really gave everyone their own like separate life away from Joe. Like you even see scenes where Joe's not around and like what's going on with them without Joe. And so I like that like they all were people with like a story and with something like to say and something that they were going through. And I see that with him, like with what you're talking about where he first comes to the house. It wasn't even about Joe in that moment. It was about him and like him wanting this.
This is like the closest I have ever seen anyone come to Leo and Romeo plus Juliet, where he's like so just like angelically beautiful and like emotionally available in every scene. But I think he has like so much more depth in this movie than young Leo or most sort of like young heartthrob characters get.
Yeah, he's really really good.
Meryl Streep as Aunt March. It's pretty incredible that you get this far down the list and they're like, oh, and also Meryl Streep. She's also here.
I was saying this to my boyfriend when we watched together. I was like, she barely stands up this whole movie, and I like to think that when she signed on, she was like, I'll do it, but I'm not standing. Like, she's like, I will be sitting down the whole time. Because she's either like on a couch or like in a carriage.
She's like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't afford walking Meryl Streep. You can only afford seated Meryl Streep.
Exactly.
I love that she's pretty much like just comedic energy in this.
Yeah.
Like they're like, we're gonna get Meryl Streep, but she's like sort of just going to play the comedic side character.
I know, I love it. And she does it because Meryl Streep always shows up to work, you know?
The other thing is so many of these characters, it's easy to be like, they're just a trope, right? Like, it would be so easy to play the aunt as, like, just old and annoyed. But, like, you totally get where Meryl is coming from.
Yeah.
Well, and there's this fascinating whole bit where she's like, yeah, I didn't ever get married because I wanted to have control of my money and, like, wanted to... And you have to get married because you can't be poor. But... I didn't have to do that because I was smart.
Yeah, she's like not suggesting marriage because of the social, like, that's what's expected, but because like she is like, money will make you, like, you can do more with money.
Yeah.
The scene where, like, and I don't think she even says anything, but like the scene where she processes that Amy has chosen love over status. Even though Laurie is also rich.
Yeah. Like, she really didn't do anything that bad.
He's just, like, not stable, like whoever that other dude is.
Yeah. I think it's also really interesting where there's the moment where she looks at Joe with her haircut, and that's the moment that she decides on Florence or on Amy for the Paris trip. And it's like not all of the other stuff. It's just the hair. She's down to brass tacks and practicality, that one.
You got Tracy Letts, who plays in Lady Bird her father. In this movie, he's the agent. The famous playwright Tracy Letts, who is like her literary publisher, who is sort of going back and forth with her this whole movie. Really warm.
Yeah.
I thought for a guy who's kind of a jerk,
Yeah.
you also really like him.
Yeah.
He's got some good comic moments in there.
And didn't make the character just like, I'm horrible. Yeah, like Wade is saying, like, he made it like, okay. Because it was funny, you know.
He also has a great moment of realization when his daughters come to him with the manuscript, and you can see that he's clearly like, oh, this might make me money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then right there, again, popping up at the end, we've got Bob Odenkirk from Better Call Saul as the dad who comes home from war. He's only in probably the last half an hour of the movie.
Yeah.
And probably in like 6 minutes total screen time.
Yeah, he does good. He does fine.
Yeah.
Like, never am I really worried about what the dad is doing or thinking. I'm like, okay, he's there now.
Yeah.
I'm happy for the girls that their dad is there, like, because they're happy.
That scene really gets me when he comes back home for the first time.
It's sweet.
It's so
for
good.
some reason, like, for a while before I, like, watched this, I thought the dad was, like, dead. Like, my memory of Little Women was that the dad was dead, because I, like, saw it as a kid. And then I was like, oh, no, he comes back. There's, like, a whole thing.
I think it's interesting that you never see him and Laura Dern kiss. Like, in there, when he, like, comes home from the war, like, his first thing is hugging all four of the daughters.
Yeah.
And then, like, after he's done that, then the mom comes and hugs him.
Yeah.
But and at the funeral and all the other times we see him, like, we see them being very close and intimate, but you never see them kiss on screen.
Interesting.
This movie, also the rare PG movie, we should say. Almost no movies are PG anymore, because kids' movies are G, and then, like, everything else is PG-13. As we move through these last couple, I'm just going to group them into our regular segment, Greta Off Without You.
Oh, yeah.
In this segment, we look at all the suitors in the movie and say which of them we would date in real life. Let's count them down. We've got Chalamet as Laurie.
Okay.
And we've got Professor Bear from the end. We've got Meg's husband.
John Brooke.
James Norton is John Brooke. There's that, like, weird fop that Amy is going to marry.
Oh, yeah.
Who you see for 30 seconds of this movie. There's that guy, too.
I want him.
I guess we could mention Chris Cooper as the eligible grandpa if we wanted to.
Oh, my gosh.
Just
Wow.
throwing him in there, too.
That's a tough one for me. I honestly think for me, at least with this movie, I would go with Bear. I like the smart boy, you know, the intelligent one. But I also know that, like, high school me would have been in love with John Brooke. I would have been in love with, like, that kind of, like, kind of awkward, but, like, classically handsome. Like, that kind of whole, like, deal was me in high school. But I think now I would go for Bear more.
I think I would do exactly what Joe does. And get my heart stomped on by Timothée Chalamet. And then retreat into the warm and loving embrace of Bear.
I think I would be a little bit intimidated by Bear, but I don't know. I feel like I would probably be most likely to end up with John Brooke. Although, after seeing the movie, like, if I knew what I know now from seeing the movie, probably not, because that's not really what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, right?
I mean, that's kind of what I am doing, and I'm trying not to do.
See, I think I would want to be with Bear because I like being, like, the dumber one. It makes me feel like I like someone else being smart for me.
Sure. I guess I will be the dumber one, no matter what, so that's fine. Okay, the other thing that I want to talk about, we've talked about the cast, we talked about the structure. I want to talk about the ending a little bit.
Okay.
Because this is the other big thing that Gerwig changes, is that there's a little meta-textual layer to the ending, which is that, as we mentioned in the book, Joe marries Professor Bear, and it's like a weird left turn, but she does end up married, which was because in real life, Louisa May Alcott was regulated by the publisher, that if there was a female protagonist, she had to be married by the end of the book. So in this movie, we have, like, the framing device that Joe is trying to get her work published, and also that she meets Bear, and, like, there's the romance between them. And it gets up to the point where, like, they're going to tell each other they love her, and then it cuts back to the publishing, and you see the publisher being like, well, you've got to do it. You have to have a happy ending. And then eventually Joe gives in, and then we cut back and we see the happy ending.
And then we cut back for the final shot is her in the publishing office or in the printing office as the book is being printed. Mm-hmm. So it ends with that.
I like it. I think it was a way to kind of like in our modern era, like address the like clearly sexist world that like Louisa May Alcott lived in, and like the fact that like this book probably would have been differently if she didn't live in that world, but like still was telling the book, because like if you just went off away from the book, like people were gonna flip out and be like if she decided to do something differently. I mean, it could have been cool. I don't know, but like there would have definitely been the people out there that were like mad. Yeah. So like I think it was a way to like address it, but still like do the book, if that makes sense. And I thought it was kind of funny too. Like I thought it was just like a funny little.
I think it is too, and that's kind of what sells it to me is how quickly Joe relents, because they're still like within the story. Joe is in love with Bear,
yeah.
So like the smile on her face
like, okay.
when she's like,
and because in the story world version of this, she's already made that decision to fall in love with Bear. She just hasn't made the decision to write it into the story, like because I think that's the last thing that's happening in the whole thing is her talking to the publisher is like the last thing that's happening in story timeline, right?
Well, the very ending of the book is the school.
Oh, right. Okay, because you do see some of that after she gets with Bear, but she would be talking to him after whatever time Bear came to see her, so she knows how it goes, and that's like she is in love with him. She has already made that decision, and she's happy to relent.
Yeah, I think it is like a little bit having it both ways, but as someone who wants it, like I want them to get together and have that moment. I think it's fun and exciting that she does it that way.
Yeah.
And clearly is like a tribute to Alcott in a big way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's cool that the school is very similar to the school that Mistress America, Greta Gerwig's character, describes. Like the restaurant where everybody will be there and it'll be very warm and all the kids are going to grow up to be artists and be around like loving artistic people all the time. And it's like that's that same dream followed through on. It's
also how Colin Trevorrow's planned Star Wars Episode 9 script ends, with Rey on like a lush plains planet teaching a Jedi school with the help of Finn and Poe.
I mean, that makes sense. You know, you want the heroes to come back and have some wisdom to impart to the next generation. Like that is the whole like ancient epic myth, right?
No. Throughout the movie, there's a lot of like references to their education and like the way that they're being educated, and like clearly they're not like super happy with it. Like Amy does not like her school, and Marmee ends up not really liking her school for her either. And like Joe's teaching Beth, and there's like I think a line even where Meg is like, John Brooke is like talking about women's education, and she like is like snaps back at him like,
yeah, John Brooke has some thoughts about women's education that he is eager to impart to the women in the room.
But so I like that like you had those hints, and then it kind of ended with them creating this school where women can learn, and not just learn like basic knowledge, but like grow in their art and grow in like the things that they're passionate about too.
And the thing that I love about like the filmmaking is that they do all of the past in like these really warm tones, and they do like all of the present, the entire movie in like these cool blue tones. Because it doesn't like tell you when they switch back and forth. That's just like kind of what you have to be like not even paying attention to, but picking up on just like which world you're in. And I love that it's only when they get to the school that it becomes warm in the present.
Yeah.
It isn't getting her artistic ambition fulfilled when she gets the book. And it isn't like getting the relationship and the love with Professor Bear. It is like when she finally attains that higher purpose that she wasn't even like actively pursuing the whole movie, you know?
Oh, I love that.
Like that's the thing that sets her free. So cool.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Well, the movie made me cry. Now you're going to make me cry talking about the movie. Great.
I adore this movie. It's one of my favorite movies ever made. I can see how like if you weren't into it, it would be a little bit of a slog, because it is like so sincere and so nostalgic, and I like go so hard in for those things.
Yeah, same.
But like if you weren't into it, it is like 2.5 hours of 3-minute scenes that are like played straight.
Yeah.
But okay, and that would be annoying if the acting wasn't incredible.
Yeah,
and
that's
like
true.
everyone is serving 100% of the time. It's like they're giving it everything you need. There's like a whole parade of emotions on everyone's face.
Yeah.
I mean, I do see how, like, I understand why the PBS miniseries of this would not be something that I could sit through.
I watched it.
How was it?
It's been a minute. I watched it like a year ago, I think, because it was kind of trying to do this thing of like taking that world and then bringing it to the modern world, but something didn't like mesh for me. It like felt kind of like two separate stories were being told, and it was just a little weird. But there were some really good actors in it, and like it was still entertaining. It wasn't bad. It's just like there was something that, especially because I think I watched it after I watched this movie, so like I was watching it being like, oh, but Greta Gerwig's movie did this, which was better.
I remember being a little disappointed when it was announced that she was doing Little Women, because I was so into Lady Bird. I was like, can't wait to see what she does next. And then they were like, Little Women? I was like, really? And then I kind of thought that it was going to be like a modern adaptation, or she was going to do something like different. And then they put out the trailer, which was very like, makes it look much more like a costume drama than I would say it really is.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's just like another Little Women? Like, where is like the exciting Greta Gerwig in this? And then when you see it, it all clicks into place.
Yeah.
This was the first Greta Gerwig movie I ever saw. I had never read Little Women, so I had absolutely no context going in other than that we were all going to watch it and that Saoirse Ronan and Timothée Chalamet were in it. And I was like, well, that's enough. You know, we passed through this interesting phase in like the 2010s where there weren't movie stars. I mean, there were people who were famous, but there was like no one who you would go and see a movie because they were in it. And I feel like in the late 2010s, we were getting, I was getting back into like having people that like had pull power. Like if they were in a movie, I would go see it. It doesn't matter if I've heard of the movie or anything else about it. Like,
were you shocked that first time or surprised by anything, not knowing the story? Like,
none of it was like surprising once I got to the end of it. Like all of it hit me in the moment, like the emotional weight of it hit me, but I was like, yeah, obviously like the sick ailing girl is going to die at the end. Like I mean like it was about halfway through I was like, oh well, Beth is going to die and it's going to rip my heart out when she does.
Yeah.
I do think I was surprised about the way things turned out between Joe and Laurie and Amy. And I think like the surprise of it the first time around is why I sympathized with him more.
There's a lot of Little Women adaptations where it's like when Laurie and Amy like get together, it's like, wait, what just happened? Like, it's like, hold up. So this one like gave us like their relationship more, which I enjoyed.
there is like the real sorrow of losing Beth, and like that scene of Laura Dern crying without the audio like destroys me.
So, especially because they do that where she had like come down that other time and Beth was right there, and then she comes on that time and you just see Laura Dern's face and no one's there, and it's like it hit it. Yeah, I was like openly weeping in that theater.
And like that's the whole reason that the second half is cold, is like blue, is because like Beth is dying and dead in that half, you know, and like because they've suffered this whole tragic loss as a family. I mean,
yeah, I had not even paid attention to like the tonal or like the color shifts or whatever in the thing, but it makes me think because like Joe talks a lot about like the loss of childhood, so like the warmer ones are her childhood, and then we go where there's these children at the school, and that's when it's like warm again. So like this like childhood continues, you know, like even when your childhood's gone, like there's still.
And the thing I love about the Beth thing too is that like the scene immediately after she dies has her in it.
Yeah.
Because they flip back. So it's like you immediately, even though Beth is dead, like you immediately are spending time with her again.
Yeah.
Which I think is like some other statement it's making too.
And that's so true of memory too, because don't you like, you know, you do still like have people with you who are no longer present on the earth. And some like, especially right after people die, you do remember them very often and very intensely, you know?
Yeah.
We like to ask who the protagonist of every movie we watch is and what they want throughout the movie. Adam, any thoughts about this?
I definitely think it's Joe. And I think she obviously like wants to be a great writer and just kind of like wants to make her own way in the world and like find a way to like live without relying on like someone else, like for it to be her that's making her way in the world. And I think she also like always, her family is like a drive of hers, like to take care of her family, to be there for her family. That's always something that's important to her too.
I also think that Joe is the protagonist. I want to make a case for Amy, but I don't, like, realistically, especially in this movie, I don't really think that's possible.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a tribute to this movie, though, that you can get so close to making a case for it.
You can get very, very close to making a pretty good case, but it begins and ends with her. We know it's her. Okay. It's tied up in the school that she starts. And it's tied to the very beginning. Like, she loves her family. Like, and not the, like, oh, she loves, like, the individual people in her family, but she loves the way that it operates. Like, she loves the environment. She loves putting on plays with her sisters and, like, that whole thing. She is thriving in it the most, it feels like, even out of all of them. And she's even the one saying to Meg, like, don't go, don't change your life, stay here, do the Peter Pan thing. Like, let's be kids forever. Let's, like, continue to, like, do this thing where it's just the four sisters living together forever. It feels like she's trying to prolong her childhood for a lot of the movie. And the scene with Laurie is her, like, ending it in a pretty drastic way and being like, I'm going to do these other things, and here's the person I'm going to be as an adult. And then it's about, like, reconciling those two visions, like her childhood vision and her adult vision of her, like her childhood vision of what family can and should be and her adult ambition have to be, like, reconciled so that she can find peace by the end of the film. I just came up with that on the fly, and I like, hit me kind of hard as I was saying it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have anything as eloquent or just, like, as developed as that. I also think it's Joe. I think there's something in there about, like, it being tied into writing her thing the whole time, because it does feel like she's actively pursuing her career the most out of all of the four of them. I don't know. I think she does get what she wants in the end, in that, like, really beautiful, really long scene of an original printing press, where you're kind of just like, oh, I guess that's how books are made. But then it isn't, like we said, that isn't the end of her story. Like, that isn't the thing that gets her out of her funk that she's in this movie. Because I think, like, the way they structure it makes it like this is a movie about Jo being in a depression, being in a place where her art, like, isn't fulfilling, and, like, searching back through all these old memories until she, like, unlocks the thing that gets her out of it.
You see her at the very end, like the very last shot is just this half smile. You know, I talked about this on the Lady Bird episode. The last thing that happens on the Lady Bird episode is the inhale before new movement or new thought. And the last shot of this movie is, like, the exhale of satisfaction. And it's, I just think, like, paying attention to the breath, especially in an actor as good as Saoirse Ronan and a director as, like, keyed into an actor as Greta Gerwig. Yeah. You know?
So if Jo is our protagonist, then we have to ask the question, who is our MVP? Who is our favorite character other than Jo in this movie? Our MVP OTJ, I suppose. Adam?
I mean, I think, like, Amy, like, Florence Pugh just is, like, a really, like, obvious and clear, like, I don't know, she brought so much to that role and, like, made me really care about that character. And, like, I loved that character's journey, and, like, there's a lot of complexity to Amy, I think, especially in this, like, film that I really enjoy. I also I'm just, like, have a soft spot for Marmee and for Laura Dern, so that's, like, another one that
I'll allow it. I'll allow you to sneak into. I'll let it pass this time.
I would say Amy is my answer, though.
Okay.
I want to say some cute thing and be like Chris Cooper, because I think he is amazing in this. But I would be lying if I didn't say Timothée Chalamet as Laurie. I think Laurie is so good. I love him. And then in some scenes, I hate him. He says at one point, I feel caught. And I resonate with that.
That was very funny.
Wade, who is your MVP, OTJ?
I have I mean, there are, like you said, there's so many good people in this movie, so it's hard to pick. I will give a shout out to Emma Watson, who I do think is a little underappreciated for her work here.
Yeah, I agree.
But I actually think my MVP is Meryl Streep.
Yes,
as the aunt.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm not like, look, she's incredible. I'm sure she's the best actress alive. But I'm not like normally the biggest Streep head. I haven't seen like everything she's in. But I feel like it's such a cool use of her to be like, she's just going to be funny. She's just going to be sassy. She's going to be like irreverent and kind of tearing down the constructs of this world at every turn.
Yeah.
And also just have the best facial expressions of anyone.
She's so good.
Yeah.
And the scene where she's just snoring and then she wakes up and gets angry.
Love her. Okay,
we like to end things with a little quiz. And this week, I'm about to text this to both of you. We're all going to play the BuzzFeed quiz. Which Little Women are you?
Oh my god.
We're going to find out. So don't skip ahead. We're going to go through this together, and we're going to figure out which March sister from Little Women. If you want to play along at home, this is on BuzzFeed from January 2020. These 7 simple questions will reveal which Little Women sister you're most like. Before we start, do you have any feelings about which Little Women sister you are?
I strongly do, and I do not want to reveal it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I know who I am. I mean, for me, it's between 2, but like, I think I know who I am.
Who do you think?
I think I'm either Amy or Meg. Like, I just like things, and I like feeling secure. I definitely, as a child, was more of an Amy. I was a little bit of like a brat in some ways. So.
I feel like you're a lot of a Joe too. That was the first one that came to mind for you. And I also think you have a little bit of Beth just for being so sweet.
Oh, thank you.
That was my first.
I guess I'm all of them.
My first 2 feelings for you were not the 2 you thought you were.
Oh.
So I will let you know
I guess
that.
we all, like see ourselves differently than other people see us. I want to be Joe, so I'm scared to say that I am that, because like that's who I would like. Like when you're young and you're like reading Little Women, you're like, I want to be Joe. But like, but then in reality, we're all Amy's,
I feel like I've got a little bit of Joe, but I also think I have a lot of Meg. I definitely relate to like the older sibling trying to hold things together in that way. Yeah, let's read them out loud, and we'll go through them all together. So the first question is, pick a book. You've got Macbeth, Little Women, Pride and Prejudice, and Sense and Sensibility. Which really feels like in those last 2, they could have put something a little more different.
Yeah, I put Pride and Prejudice.
Okay,
I really I've always loved Pride and Prejudice. So
I'm putting the only one of these that I've read, Macbeth.
I love Macbeth, but I think I'm going to go with Little Women here. I think that's closer to my sensibilities. Okay, question number 2. We've got, what talent would you choose if you could? Which is interesting. Art, music, writing, or dancing?
And art, just so you know, there's some paintbrushes in the picture, so I assume we're talking studio arts.
Like
here.
visual art.
Visual arts.
I put music because I'm bad at like literally all 3 of the others. So music's the only thing of those that I do.
Yeah, I'm going to put dancing because that is the one that I would like to have that I don't have.
Fair.
I put music as well because for the same reason that Wade did. It's the thing that I would like to get better at of these.
Okay, question number 3. How would your friends describe you? Stylish, shy, determined, or kind?
I'm putting kind for myself. I think that people would say I'm kind.
I would describe you as kind.
I can be stylish. I mean,
I'm not resonating with any of these.
I guess it's which one most close.
I do think I'm kind to people, but I don't know if that's the number one thing that people would say. I'm going to go with determined.
Yeah, I was going to say I could see determined for you. I don't know. I guess kind.
Say kind or stylish.
I was also considering stylish, but I don't think I'm really that stylish.
Well,
I think you are. I think you're stylish.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank
but
you.
I also think you're very. I think you're very kind too. So.
Oh, I'm going with stylish now. Okay, if you could have one wish for yourself, it would be money, love, endless childhood, success. These are very on the nose questions.
Yeah.
So which one you're picking?
Okay, well, but okay. So I picked money because I don't have it. Like I have love. Like
Yeah.
so, like realistically, I want love more, but I have that. So why would I wish for it? Like I'm gonna wish for money because I don't have money.
I agree. I think I'm also going to go the same way because I feel like if I had money, then I could make what I want and maybe it would be successful, you know?
Yeah.
As opposed to just like automatically being successful.
Yeah.
So let me level with you. There was a strong draw towards endless childhood over here.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
But I went with success because like endless childhood would be fun for me. But success, like my vision of success involves helping other people, and I think that's better. So that's what I go with.
Now we've got Choose a Man from Little Women. We've kind of already said this, an interesting selection here. We've got Laurie, Professor Bear, John Brooks, and Father March. Are the 4 men they've chosen.
No gilf love in this crowd, I see.
I guess Beth's boyfriend is Father March. Well, I guess I'm going to go with John Brooks, my answer from earlier.
Yeah, I did Bear, which is what I said earlier too. So
I'm going to go with Laurie because, you know.
fair. Got to give him some love. He needs it.
Okay, choose an animal: cat, dog, hamster, or no animal. Are the options here?
No animal for me.
Those famous, beloved 4 American pets.
I have serious issues with this, but with this question. But we can get to it. What are your answers?
Oh, I said dog.
I'm going to say no animal for me. That feels the most honest, although I have loved living with a dog this winter.
I'm saying dog because I love my dog. But my God, your 4 choices are cat, hamster, dog, and no animals. Do you know a lot of people keep reptiles? A goldfish, maybe, or a turtle, a bearded dragon, for instance.
All right, and the final question, most importantly, and this is their emphasis, not mine. Do you think Amy should have ended up with Laurie? The options here are no, Joe, yes, obviously, they do seem happy, I guess, question mark, and probably not, but I'm not bothered by it.
I put yes. I like them together, especially like in terms of this film.
I'm going to put they do seem happy, I guess, because I do like them ending up together, but I'm not sure it's obvious. I'm not sure I would say yes, obviously they should have. So I'm going to say they do seem happy, I guess. Emmett?
I'm saying probably not.
Okay.
Just honestly, like, not that I don't like the way this ends, but probably not. But I'm not bothered by it.
All right, the answers are in. Who did everyone get? What's the scoop?
I got Amy. Like the youngest March sister, you have a fiery spirit and maybe a bit spoiled at times, but you have a heart of gold. You know what you want in life and you're not afraid to go for your dreams even if you break a few hearts along the way. Sounds like me.
Damn.
I'm just kidding.
To a T.
This got what I wanted. Joe March, you're brave, independent, smart, and loyal. You do anything for your sisters. So true. Even if you choose to venture down a different path in life than they do. It's your selfless yet stubborn attitude that makes people respect and admire you.
Is that who you thought you were?
That is who I wanted to
quiet?
think that I was.
Oh, okay.
And yeah.
I've also gotten Amy.
Oh my God.
They've done it to me. Yeah, I've got the exact same description. I was wondering for a second if we were all 3 going to get Amy.
Yeah, I did think it was
With our
possible.
completely different answers.
Busted in some sort of way.
I know. I'm glad it's like got a picture of Florence Pugh because that makes me feel like, oh yeah, I'm Amy. Yes, okay.
Yeah,
I
right?
win because I'm
Yeah.
Florence Pugh.
It makes you feel a little better
Yeah.
about the whole situation. Adam, do you have any final thoughts about Little Women?
No, I don't think so. I love it. I'm gonna watch it again at some point.
Emmett, final thoughts?
I have 2 final thoughts on this. One is there's a scene on the Christmas day when Laura Dern comes in and tells the girls they've got this beautiful feast laid out before them, and she tells the girls there's this poor family down the street. They don't have any blankets. They don't have any food. Will you give up your Christmas dinner and like take it to the poor people? And it's like so lovely, right? And they do. And the first shot that you see of it is like Florence Pugh crying about it. But then the next shot, they're just all the 4 girls led by their mom, who Laura Dern is very tall. Are like walking down, and they've got all of their food and all the bundles and blankets, and there's nothing said about it, but the shot is the church and all of the people walking into the church, and the 5 of them walking past the church down to feed the poor on Christmas.
Oh, wow.
And it is my favorite thing that Greta Gerwig has ever done.
Yeah.
And I was like, that
That's
speaks.
so good.
That's like so true. That's the truth, and that's what it is. My other thought on this, much less deep, is that Laurie and Joe March invented the game Ninja.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
That is a thing in this movie.
Wait, final thoughts?
I have a couple scattershot, just little nuggets I didn't mention. First of all, there are a lot of film grain spots, which I didn't notice before this viewing, but there are like when you watch something on a VHS or in like something being physically projected onto your screen, there are like little grainy spots on it, and those are all over this movie. So I'm not sure if they scanned them in or if they're like digitally added, but I think that's part of just her like going for some nostalgia thing.
Oh, I thought that was part of the Stars app experience.
when I saw it in theaters, I saw it at a theater that like plays their movies on film.
Oh,
So it was really cool. Yeah, it was like
jealous.
my family was just like looking for a theater and like ended up at this random one that did that, and it was very cool. And so it kind of added to that effect too.
Joe with her short hair looks exactly like Greta Gerwig did in Hannah Takes the Stairs, the first movie, which I thought was interesting.
So beautiful.
I love that Meg has this one sexy night where she makes everyone calls her Daisy. And in the moment, she's like, let me have this fun night. I'll never be bad again the rest of my life. And then she names her daughter Daisy at the end, which I thought was a bold move. But I was into that.
And she names her son Demi.
Maybe we should stop throwing things in the ocean. This was something I think this happens in Lady Bird too, or in Mistress America, one of the two. There are both like a moment where a character passionately like destroys their art by throwing it into the ocean.
Oh my gosh.
We don't need to litter.
Yeah,
so you can burn it.
Yeah, save the turtle. Wait, don't burn it. That's also bad. Save the turtles.
Just throw it away, I guess.
My final thought is that I love the trope of the old house doctor who visits and delivers bad news to the parent, which is in this movie and is in so many other movies. Like the guy who's not a character but comes to visit and walks out of the room and gives the parent a look, and you know it's not good.
Damn.
Such a good trope. I'd love to play one day. I feel like I could do it very well.
Oh yeah, you would kill that role.
One of those non-speaking roles, or they have one line and they're just like, can I talk to you outside?
And it's like, it's devastating. And you're like, oh my God.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Wade, you would do really well at that.
Thank you.
I thought of something I wanted to add.
Please.
I wanted to say this in case Meryl Streep ever hears this podcast.
She probably
We can only dream.
I know I didn't pick you, Meryl, as my number one, but like in general, you are my number one, and like you could have easily taken the spot. So much love for you, girly. Take care.
When Emmett and I were pitching this podcast, one of our podcasts was called The Dern Cast.
Oh my gosh.
And was just going to be us watching every Laura Dern movie in order.
And I stand by it.
I wanted to have a Meryl Streep podcast called Merrily We Roll Along.
Oh my God.
That's good.
Oh, incredible.
That's good. You should do it.
Yeah, you should do it. And
I also am going to make a Glee podcast called Mr. Schuster Can Choke, but that's like another story.
Well, I hope if you decide to make these podcasts, you'll just come on over to DKG Productions and be a part of our podcast empire, baby.
Oh my gosh. I'd be happy
please write us. What's our email address?
At cinemabums@gmail.com.
cinemabumspod@gmail.com, and tell us what other podcasts you want to hear.
Yeah.
Adam, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. This was so fun.
So lovely to have you on.
Oh.
Do you have any projects you want to plug? Anywhere that people can find you online? Anything you want to say while you're here?
You can find me on Instagram. It's at Woodward_Adam. You can also find me on TikTok. It's at Miss Piggy's Gay Assistant. And I'd be happy for you to give me a follow. Thank you guys.
Well, I guess that just about does it. We're gonna be back on Friday, where we're gonna be announcing our next series.
I seriously cannot believe we've already wrapped this series up. It's incredible to me. And I also can't wait for Greta Gerwig's next movie, whatever it may be.
Yeah, you know what? I was gonna say that on the other one, but we can just say this now. And this might not come to fruition, but what she's been signed on to work on for the last little bit is a Barbie movie. A live-action Barbie movie starring Margot Robbie.
Oh my gosh.
Directed by Greta, written by Greta and Noah Baumbach together.
That's the best thing I've ever heard.
It's one of those movies that has like been in development hell forever, because there was a version of it with Amy Schumer.
Okay.
That was like trying to get made for a long time and then just never happened. But like this one came together, I think, around the time this movie came out. So hopefully it will become real and they'll shoot it as soon as it's safe to again.
You know,
Please.
late stage capitalism strikes again.
Yeah, but we'll be back on Friday to talk about our next, and then we'll be back next Tuesday. And that's it. We love you guys. Bye.
Stay frosted.
Cinema Bums is a production of DKG Podcasts. It is created and produced by Emma Temple and me, Wade Lawrence Holloman. I also edit and mix the podcast. Our theme music is by Zane Holloman, who you can find on Bandcamp, and our show art is by Autumn Beckner. Our social media is managed by Laura Bennett. If you like what you hear, please tell all your friends, and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, the 2 best ways to spread the word about our work. You can also follow us on Instagram at CinemaBums or email us at cinemabumspod@gmail.com. Don't flake on us. We'll be back next week.